Merry Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Higaka, and in this episode we are going to take a look at an iconic movie franchise, that is Home Alone, the cars that get some screen time at least. And to not overcomplicate things, the only two canon films are the first two, from 1990 and 1992 respectively. For this video's car list, I'll be using what's after the movies list of cars that they were able to identify, and I will provide a link in the description with the frames as well. Before I get into the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, push the bell notification icon, like the video, subscribe, and don't forget to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook even, and X. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. Here's a car you wouldn't normally expect to see in a Home Alone film. The BMW 5 Series E28, briefly seen in one of the film's so-called Paris shots, even though none of those scenes were actually filmed in Paris. The Orly airport scene was actually shot in Chicago's O'Hare Airport. This E28 is most likely a late production 1987 or 1988 model, the final years before the E34 generation took over, though the E28 was still assembled in South Africa until 1989. And given that Europe was far more diesel-friendly at the time, the car we see on the screen has a very high chance of being a diesel 524D or 524TD. Those two models use BMW's M21D24 straight-six diesel engine, 86 horsepower for the naturally aspirated 524D and 115 horsepower for the turbocharged 524TD. When launched, the 524TD was actually the world's fastest production diesel car, while still managing about 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers, around 33 mpg US. The TD was the first diesel car BMW ever made. The E28 generation is also notable for launching the very first BMW M5, powered by the S38 platform in the US and the M88 in Europe and South Africa. As for value today, Classic.com's market benchmark index shows the 524TD has appreciated significantly. Two examples auctions between December 2024 and January 2025 showed an increase of roughly $12,700 in less than a month. And like all E28 models, the TD was only ever offered as a four-door sedan. Another European car that we can find as a background car in Home Alone when Kevin returns home after meeting Santa, we'll get back to him later, is the Volkswagen Golf Mk2, also known as the Typ 19E until 1991. Launched at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1983, it quickly became popular across Europe, reaching the United States in 1985. The Mk2 featured a wider body shell and a range of engines. The base engine was initially a 1.3 option as used for the first generation of Golf, accompanied by 1.6 and 1.8 liter petrol straight fours and 1.6 liter naturally aspirated or turbocharged diesel engines. But for the Northern American market, the main engines offered were either a 1.6 or 1.8 liter petrol straight 4 or a 1.6 turbo diesel. The trims available for this market were the GTI, GTI 16V and even the supercharged G60. It was offered as a 3 or 5-door hatchback, and the sedan variants were sold as the Volkswagen Jetta. This was the last Golf generation to feature carburetor engines before fuel injection became mandatory in the early 1990s. Here's a complete list of engines available for the Northern American market. In Europe today, especially Germany, you can find the used Golf 2 for roughly anything that starts at $1,100 up to $6,900, depending on condition, with even some spare parts like headlights costing around $840. All those announcements that I checked, and I will leave a link in the description so you can check them as well, scream something that loads of used car salesmen used back in the day to market their cars online. Especially something that would be, especially a phrase that comes to my mind right now that would be roughly translated into English as, I'm selling a Golf. It doesn't knock, it doesn't rattle, it was used only once by an old lady from Germany to go to store. So beware of scammers and what you're buying online. You don't want to get into a money pit and then have to take it to the very cool mechanic for an even bigger money pit there. Another European car briefly appearing in Home Alone in the scene when Kevin is shoplifting and running away from a cop on an ice rink is the 1989 Jaguar XJ6, part of the 4th generation XJ lineup, known internally as the XJ40. It's the last car manufactured by an European carmaker on this list of Home Alone cars. Initially introduced as part of Jaguar's catalogue back in 1988, the XJ40 sat on an all-new platform with Jaguar's independent rear suspension and having a more angular styling than earlier XJs. The version seen in the film and the only one specifically marketed towards the North American market is the following one: a 4-door rear-wheel drive saloon car powered by a 3.6-litre inline-6 producing about 195 horsepower, paired with a 4-speed automatic gearbox. Performance-wise, it was a respectable 80s luxury saloon, from 0 to 60 in under 10 seconds and a theoretical top speed of roughly 214 km an hour. Though fuel economy hovered around 18 to 19 mpg US or 12.4 liters per 100 kilometers. What makes the XJ40 especially interesting is its long and troubled development. Work on the car began as early as 1973, but due to oil crises, funding issues and internal management problems, the car was delayed for over 15 years. By the time it reached showrooms, its style already looked dated, and early 3.6-litre cars became infamous for electrical issues, especially those with their Tokyo by night dashboards, hurting Jaguar's reputation yet again. Things improved significantly after Ford's takeover in 1989, which brought better build quality and led to the much improved 3.2 and 4-litre versions in the early 90s. The refined XJ40 would ultimately evolve into the XJ300 in 1994, closing the chapter on one of Jaguar's most complicated but fascinating luxury saloon cars stories. While I wasn't able to find any auctions or price evolutions for the 1989 version of this Jag, I did find figures for the XJ models manufactured from 1986 until 1994, the lowest being $1,456 on the 30th of October this year, and the highest sale price being $20,600 one day prior. Remember that Santa I mentioned earlier? Well, he got a ticket and had a second generation 1982 Honda Civic. This generation of Civic was produced from 1979 to 1983 and marked a big step up from the original. It was larger, more angular, and noticeably more refined, taking inspiration from the bigger Honda Accord. In the US market, the 1982 Civic was offered with either a 1.3 or 1.5-litre inline-4 petrol engine, producing between about 55 to 67 horsepower, paired with 4 or 5-speed manual gearboxes, or Honda's early Honda-matic automatic with 3 gears. Performance was modest, roughly 0 to 100 in the 13.7-15.7 second range, but fuel economy was excellent, often in the 7.1 litre per 100 km range. Lightweight, front-wheel drive and extremely reliable, the Civic became one of the cars that defined affordable transportation in the early 1980s. Today, second-generation Civics are starting to gain classic status, with value rising steadily as clean examples become harder to find. A reminder that even the most ordinary background cars can quietly become icons. Classic's CBM index indicates a 13,975 appreciation over a year. Let's hope that Santa kept the Civic and restored it. He'll make a good buck nowadays given enthusiasm for Japanese cars. One of the more interesting Japanese background cars in Home Alone. In the scene when Kevin is walking alone to his home and sees the happy family inside the house is not just the Golf from earlier, but the Mazda 626 Coupe as well, part of the GC generation, which was produced from 1982 to 1987, with the identified version in the film being one from 1983. This generation marked a major shift for Mazda, as the 666 moved from a front-wheel drive platform, offered more interior space, better road manners and improved fuel efficiency. In most markets, the GC 626 was available as a sedan, coupe or hatchback, with the two-door coupe being the sportier and less common option. Engine choices varied widely by market, ranging from 1.6 to 2-litre inline-4 petrol engines, producing anywhere between around 80 to 120 horsepower, with a turbocharged version offered later in the model's life. A diesel option was also available in Europe, with a curb weight of roughly 1,200 kilograms. Performance was respectable for the era, while fuel consumption stayed under 9 liters per 100 kilometers. The GC 626 was widely praised when new, earning Car of the Year award in Japan and abroad, and it sold extremely well across Europe and North America. A 1982 Mazda 626 sold on Classic.com for $15,951 on the 3rd of December this year. The Chevrolet Caprice appears twice in Home Alone. First, briefly in the background during Kevin's run-in with a police officer at the ice skate rink after he shoplifted the toothbrush, which he never found out if it was approved by American Dental Association, by the way, and closer to the end of the movie as a police car when the Wet Bandits get arrested. The car seen in the film is most likely a version of the 1986 facelifted Caprice, the first major redesign since 1980. It introduced a more aerodynamic front end, a revised grille, and marked the final year of sealed beam headlights before composite units arrived in 1987. By the mid-1980s, the Caprice was Chevrolet's only remaining full-size rear-wheel drive sedan, making it a common sight in American cities and a natural choice for police fleets. The most likely version used on screen is the 9C1 police fleet version, which was widely adopted across the US and performed extremely well in Michigan State Police tests, often outperforming its Ford and Mopar rivals. Engine options range from a 4.3-litre V6 with around 140 horsepower to V8s, including the appropriate pursuit-grade 5.7-litre V8 motor paired exclusively with automatic transmissions. Comfort, durability, and availability made the Caprice one of the most recognizable American police cars of the era. In today's market, standard 1986 Caprices go for under $10,000 on average. However, two police cruisers from 82 and 87 respectively sold for $5.5K and $4,950 respectively, which is quite odd for a decommissioned police vehicle of historical importance, which will definitely appreciate in price as they become rarer. Stock or modified Caprice models typically sell for anything between $4.5K to $25.2K. When we see the McAllister family garage in Home Alone, we're also seeing a snapshot of late 1980s American suburban success that, by today's standards, were definitely living large in those two-door houses. And two Buicks complement that image of a wealthy, middle to upper class suburban family from Chicago perfectly. The larger of the two is the 1986 Buick Electra Estate Wagon, a full-size, rear-wheel drive family hauler that prioritized comfort, space, and quiet cruising above everything else. This was Buick at its most traditional, body-on-frame construction, a smooth V8 under the hood/bonnet, and enough interior room to carry 6 to 8 passengers plus luggage for a long holiday trip. According to Buick's own 1986 sales material, the Electra Estate Wagon was designed to deliver luxury without sacrificing cargo capacity, offering nearly 2,500 liters of usable space with the rear seats folded flat. Parked alongside it is a 1990 Buick LeSabre, representing Buick's move into a more modern direction by the end of the decade. Unlike the Electra, the 6th generation LeSabre switched to front-wheel drive, riding on GM's H platform, and was powered by Buick's increasingly refined 3.8-liter V6, an engine that would go on to earn a reputation for durability and customer satisfaction. By 1990, the LeSabre balanced comfort with better efficiency and more contemporary styling, making it one of the most popular full-size sedans in America at the time. Both cars are background props, but together they quietly tell us everything we need to know about the McAllisters. They're affluent, practical, and very much a wealthy family of the late 80s American suburbia. Big Buicks, big house, big Christmas, but one particularly very small detail missing. A much smaller car compared to everything else in this video, but with a very memorable role in Home Alone, is the 1990 Plymouth Horizon, driven by the pizza delivery boy that Kevin scares off using the fake 1930s movie Angels with Filthy Souls. By 1990, the Horizon was at the very end of its production run. Sold alongside its twin, the Dodge Omni, it was one of Chrysler's most important small cars, and notably one of the first front-wheel drive economy cars built in the United States. Designed to compete with imports like the Volkswagen Rabbit, the Horizon was a simple, practical 5-door hatchback, powered by small inline-4 engines and focused on fuel efficiency rather than performance. In its final year, it was offered in budget-oriented trims like the Horizon America, reflecting Chrysler's push to keep affordable cars on the road. Chrysler went as far as to buy 100 Volkswagen Rabbits and reverse engineer them in order to design this car. In the film, the Horizon perfectly fits its role, an ordinary, no-nonsense pizza delivery car, making Kevin's over-the-top apparent method acting performance inside the house by pushing the buttons, literally, even funnier given the context and the lines of the actor from the fake movie Angels with Filthy Souls by contrast. Here's one of the most underrated vehicles in Home Alone, the 1983 Ford Econoline, also known as the Club Wagon, the van that unexpectedly turns into Kate McAllister's lifeline. This third-generation Econoline was already a familiar sight across America by the early 1980s. Built on a body-on-frame chassis shared with Ford's F-Series trucks, it was a tough, spacious, and versatile. That's exactly why it was so popular with shuttle services, rental fleets, and touring musicians, including in this case the polka king of the Midwest himself. Under the hood, Econolines could be fitted with anything from Ford's dependable 4.9-liter inline-6 to big V8 engines, and even diesel options for heavy-duty use. Passenger versions like the Club Wagon could seat up to 15 people, making them ideal for bands, families, or long winter road trips, especially when flights are fully booked. By 1983, Ford had refined the Econoline with improved interiors, better fuel options, and subtle styling updates, while keeping the same rugged formula that made it a commercial success. In Home Alone, this van represents the opposite of Wet Bandits' Dodge. Not a criminal tool, pun intended, since they use the plumbing van as their getaway, but a working-class people mover, turning a chaotic polka tour into a last-minute rescue mission, all powered by sheer American practicality and, well, the miracles that happen on Christmas and around holidays time. Early in Home Alone, the McAllisters family is rushed to the airport in a Dodge Ram Wagon from 1986. Introduced after Dodge renamed its full-size vans in 1981, the Ram Wagon was essentially the passenger version of the Ram van, sharing the same B-series platform, engines and drivetrains, but adding the side windows, interior trim and rear seating. In the mid-1980s, these wagons were common shuttle and family transport vehicles, valued for space, durability and simplicity, which makes it the perfect, unremarkable choice for a chaotic suburban dash to O'Hare. The more memorable appearance comes later, the Dodge Ram van, used by Harry and Marv as their getaway vehicle. By 1986, the second-generation Ram van had become a staple of American roads. Built on Dodge's long-running B-Series platform, same as the wagon, obviously, it offered a wide range of engines, from the durable Slant 6 to V8 options like the 5.2-liter and 5.9-liter, paired with manual or automatic transmission. What made vans like this attractive wasn't speed but utility. Large enclosed cargo area, minimal side windows and boxy anonymous shape made the Ram van ideal for carrying tools, goods or stolen property without drawing attention. In the 1970s and 1980s, American crime studies showed that vehicles were often stolen or used not just for joyriding, but to facilitate other offenses, especially property crimes, because they allowed offenders to move people or goods quickly and discreetly. That's why the Ram van fits the Wet Bandits perfectly. It's ordinarily practical and blends into the suburban neighborhoods, turning a common work vehicle into one of the most recognizable getaways vans in movie history. And to answer the neighbor's kid, not that kind of neighbor's kid, if you know, but rather the neighbor's kid that was mistakenly numbered as Kevin McAllister, questions regarding these vans.
Do these vans get good gas mileage?
Short answer, no, not really. In the mid-1980s, full-size American vans like the Dodge Ram were built for space and durability, not fuel efficiency. Depending on the engine and how heavily they were loaded, fuel economy usually sat in the low to mid-teens in miles per gallon. That's roughly 16 to 12 liters per 100 kilometers and could be even worse in city driving. But for an airport shuttle or a getaway vehicle, gas mileage wasn't the priority. Reliability and capacity were. That works just as well for a Ram wagon hauling a full family as it does for a Ram van carrying tools or stolen goods. Since both versions share the same engines and weight class, this applies equally to both.
How fast does this thing go?
Fast enough, but it's not a race car. Mid-1980s Dodge Ram vans and wagons were designed to cruise comfortably at highway speeds, merge easily, and keep up with traffic. Depending on engine choice and gearing, top speeds were roughly in the 100 to 110 mile per hour range. That's roughly 161 to 177 kilometers per hour, even if acceleration was modest, with engine outputs ranging from around 95 horsepower in the Slant 6 to nearly nearly 190 horsepower in V8 equipped versions, the focus was steady, predictable performance. For the Wet Bandits, speed wasn't about outrunning the police. It was about not standing out.
Does it have automatic transmission?
Yes! Very commonly. By the mid-1980s, automatic transmissions were widely available and extremely popular on Dodge Ram vans and wagons, especially in passenger, shuttle, rental, and fleet use. Manual gearboxes still existed, but automatics were preferred for city driving and stop-and-go traffic. In the film, we can actually see that the Wet Bandits van is an automatic, particularly when Harry reverses in the McAllisters' driveway and then drives away. By that point in the decade, automatics had clearly become the dominant choice for vans like these.
Does it have four-wheel drive?
Usually, no. Most Dodge Ram vans and wagons from this era were rear-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive did exist, but it was rare, expensive, and typically limited to specialty or aftermarket conversions. For both the airport shuttle and the Wet Bandits getaway run, it's safe to assume that rear-wheel drive is by far the most realistic setup. And that matters because rear-wheel drive was ordinary, common, and completely unremarkable. All those answers to the previous questions lead to the same conclusion, that the Dodge Ram van and its wagon counterpart are not special. That's exactly why they work. They're not fuel efficient, but they're dependable. They're not especially fast, but they blend into the traffic. Both of them are automatic, safe to say, despite the availability of manual transmission as well, although that's less common, which makes them easy to drive under stress. And both of them are rear-wheel drive, simple and familiar. And for low-level burglars like Harry and Marv, that makes it the perfect getaway vehicle. A van nobody looks twice at. But they were still caught, and the ingenuity of a 9-year-old boy definitely led to their ultimate arrest. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much if you stayed with me until the very end of the video. Don't forget to like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel because it helps a lot, and follow me on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook and X, and I will see you next time. I don't know when that will be. I wish you a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year if I'm not posting anything until New Year's Eve, and don't forget to drive safely. Bye bye.